All right, so we're going to pick back up there. When I left off with Dwight Eisenhower, somehow I touched the don't record button. So, again, probably not going to pick the phone up to show you pictures, just going to tell you. But anyway, so Dwight Eisenhower is given the overall command for the D-Day forces in the European Theater of Operations. He's given the overall command for North Africa prior to D-Day. He is the highest ranking and most important general in the American military, but he is the overall guy. Now, in class, usually I do a little thing with Patton. That's your next slide. I'll let you hear a little soundbite. If you want to look it up, look up George Patton's speech to his men. Really good. Patton's a great general, but he's nuts. He's absolutely insane. Thinks he's been reincarnated from a Roman general that fought in the Roman wars against Carthage. Can put together some four-letter words that I didn't know were supposed to be combined, but really does a good job with it. But he is a really good general. He is the equivalent to what Rommel would be for the Germans. Under Patton's leadership, under Montgomery, and with the fact that Germany's not giving him enough supplies, Rommel and his Deutsche Afrika Korps have to escape, and so we are victorious in North Africa. And you can walk through the slides to see Operation Torch. Again, with this, I'm just trying to give you the basics because I don't want the video to be 2 hours. Once we get out of North Africa, you have to kind of take a look at the map and see kind of what's left of the Axis powers. And if you notice the map, the big one, it says Axis powers in 42. If you look at it, what you're going to see is this little bitty red piece of Libya. We take that. So by the end of 1942, we are done. North Africa belongs to the Allies. Well, then all of a sudden, America starts going, let's invade France. Let's invade France. And Churchill's like, no, not ready. What you need to do is go to Italy. Italy's the soft underbelly. It's weak. The Italians aren't really supportive of Mussolini. Invade Italy. That'll be our trick. So Russia's doing well. We're kind of getting ready to invade Europe. So instead of invading France, we launch Operation Husky. Don't even know that name. But that operation is what brings us into the Battle of Sicily. Now in Sicily, you have two landings. You have the American 7th Army under George S. Patton, and you have the British 8th Army under Bernard Montgomery. So that's why it's the 15th Army Group. The Americans, if you look at the map, it says Battle for Sicily, June of 43. The Americans are going to go up like this, Montgomery this way. Now, early in the battle, the situation was simple. Montgomery was given the right to take this city called Messina. That is the last piece. That would mean that they have conquered the first piece of Europe taken by Hitler and Mussolini. So it's kind of a propaganda thing. Well, Patton goes up one side, Montgomery goes up the other. The problem is, and again, if you look at the map, you see where Patton moves and takes a whole lot more land. Well, the problem is that by 1943, Patton is pretty happy about his existence. I'm going to be very careful, show you the map. So this is what we're talking about, all right? Montgomery, Patton. Now, what happens? Patton gets word that Montgomery's about to take Messina. Patton doesn't want that to happen because he wants the honor of being the first guy to do it. It's a Patton thing. So he gets there. By the time Montgomery gets there, it already belongs to the Americans. Montgomery's a little upset. Bigger story later. Long story short, Sicily falls. We've retaken the first piece of our European continent back from Mussolini and from Hitler. Patton gets fired, by the way, in Sicily. He goes into a couple of hospitals to visit wounded men. And what he does when he goes in is he sees a couple of guys with what we would call today PTSD. They called it combat fatigue. Patton called them cowards. So what happens? He slaps them. Literally backhand slaps them, threatens to shoot them. Anyway, you can't do that. Gets him court-martialed. Gets him threatened with a court-martial, but he has to resign his commission. He ends up back in England, not fired just because Eisenhower knew him. Patton will come back into our story later. So following the invasion of Sicily in 1943 and the takeover of Sicily, the United States will invade Italy. This will be our first step into mainland Europe. So in 1943, we invade the bottom of the boot. Follow the map with me. So the American military invades. Now, Patton's out. New American general named Mark Clark. Montgomery's out. He didn't get fired. Montgomery gets promoted to up to Normandy, and he's going to be the guy kind of leading the Norman campaign. But if you follow the map in North Africa, from North Africa to Sicily up into Italy, our victories in Italy are pretty fast. The Italian army surrenders early on, but they're still fighting because there's Germans. Italy's the longest, most drawn-out campaign. However, again, it's only really because of a couple of places. In 1944, you should see two slides. The first one should give you January of 44 in central Italy. The next one should be February of 44. So I'm going to do these two stories together because they coincide with each other. So in 1944, we get to this town called Casino. Now, at the top of Casino, there's a big mountain, right? And on that mountain is a Benedictine Abbey. The Benedictine Abbey is the oldest Catholic abbey church in Europe. And it is where all the civilians and all are kind of hiding from the war. Problem is, it's on the top of this mount that we have to, as the American Army, traverse to get to where we're going, which is Rome. Now, on the other side of this, up the road a piece, is a city called Anzio. Now, the American plan was to land troops at Anzio, hook them up with these guys coming through Monte Cassino, and then march to Rome. Well, when they get to Cassino, first of all, they got to deal with these three rivers, Rapido, San Real, and Garigliano, which are really tough. 36th Infantry Division for the Texas military was literally every single man killed or captured trying to cross the Rapido River. Anyway, so we get to the base of Monte Cassino. And every time we go up the hill, we charge up the mountain to try to take it, we get slaughtered for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I mean, we send British divisions, American divisions, actually an Indian Punjab division, a Polish division goes up there. The Germans just kicking the hell out of us. Eventually, we decide to drop bombs on the Abbey. So we bring in the heavies, the B-17s and the B-24s, and we bomb the Abbey. And it's a bad situation, but unfortunately, we had to do it to take it. Well, here we go, up the hill, the Abbey's bomb, which should be opened up. Let's go. And the Germans weren't finished. In fact, they weren't ever in the Abbey. They were actually using the area around it. Eventually, however, we do take Casino. Anzio is as bad. We get trapped on the beach at Anzio for almost a month, finally breaking out of Anzio in early June of 1944. And once we break out of Anzio and Monte Cassino, and the American and the British kind of hook up, by June 4th, we're on the edge of Rome. By June 5th, we're in Rome. And June 5th, 1944, the Allies march into Rome and we liberate the Europeans' first capital. Now, by this point, Mussolini has been arrested, kidnapped. He's been taken up into the mountains. He's been rescued already by the Germans. Eventually, if you go to the other slide, you'll see that he and his mistress are captured by the Italian people, and well, it doesn't end well. They are hung, then hung upside down, and then left to rot for a few days as the Italians spit and throw garbage and rotten food on them. But for all intents and purposes for our story, and you can see the really super disturbing pictures of Mussolini's head as it is swollen and rotting following being cut down. As far as our story goes, Italy falls. Well, now everything focus turns on France, liberating France so we can take Germany. Now, we have been bombing from the air consistently for the last 2 years. We have basically dropped more pounds of bombs on Europe than you can even fathom out of our B-24s, which is the picture you see with the double tails on the wings. The B-17 will have a single tail wing. But we own the skies. And so we are basically kind of running roughshod over the German Empire. The really pretty silver planes you see next are P-51 Mustangs. Those are the hottest plane in World War II. The cool things about those is they allowed us to escort those bombers you saw previously. And since we can escort our bombers, we're able to kind of bomb deeper into the Reich. So again, we are controlling the air, we are controlling the sea. Now, Hitler's got these secret weapons. You can look over with the V1, which is the buzz bomb that he launches as an unmanned, unaimed rocket. The V2, which is supersonic. It's almost like a modern nuclear weapon without a nuclear warhead. All of this technology developed by this guy on the slide that you're seeing called Werner von Braun and his brother Walter. Now, at the end of the war, these two dudes are arrested from Mauthausen concentration camp. They surrender and they tell them who they are. We take them prisoner, bring them to the United States, and he and his brother develop all the technology that becomes NASA, which is why I told you NASA kind of started rocket technology by Nazis. Now, June 6, 1944 is a date that we planned on forever. So find in your notes D-Day. Operation Overlord, and I spent 2 weeks on my other class almost in this thing. I love the story, but for you guys, again, I'm trying to get this all in and quick time. So June 6, 1944, the Allies are going to land in Normandy. Now, if you've ever seen Saving Private Ryan, the opening scene, this is the Norman invasion. If you haven't, take a look, watch it. But on June 6, 1944, the Allies land. Now, the night before that, if you follow the slides kind of here, the night before that, we have paratroopers drop in, 101st, 82nd, British 6th Airborne. They all drop in behind enemy lines, and it's kind of a disaster, scattered. Come see my other class for the story. But by the time the guys hit the beach, what they're facing is absolutely devastating, withering gunfire. The Germans have been trying to hold this beach and knowing that they got to hold it for 3 years. So what's sitting at the top of the hill waiting on our guys to land, machine guns, mortars, artillery, everything in God's creation the Germans could put to fire on those beaches is aiming at them. And these guys have no cover. The other thing you have to understand for Normandy, and I think you need to get it and make it, they planted like 1 million mines. So as these guys land in these Higgins landing crafts and these LCVPs and the 29th Infantry and the 1st, these guys hit Omaha Beach and they hit Utah Beach and they hit Sword and Gold and Juneau. The 4th Infantry Division gets Utah. That's American. The 29th and 1st get Omaha. That's American. Biggest, most defended beaches. The British 50th, Canadian 3rd, and British 3rd get Sword, Gold, and Juneau. In 4 hours, we will finally take the beach, but the cost of life is high. And the Germans are just slaughtering us on the beach. The other thing you have to understand about taking Omaha Beach, taking this, is that if this fails, if the American invasion in Normandy fails, the war effort may be in a lot of trouble. But the bravery of the men, the courage of the men, the tenacity of the American and British and the Allies to take that beachhead is unmatched in history, basically, at that time. And they're able to take it. Now, the cost of life is high, and I really suggest watch Saving Private Ryan, watch anything on the History Channel on D-Day. We'll do more with it if we have time when we get back, and I hate it because some of the stories and the heroics are phenomenal. But by the end of the day of June 6, 1944, we've taken Normandy. The problem is once we take Normandy in June of 1944, we enter a period of almost stalemate. We can't really get out of this thing called the hedgerows, the fighting that's going in and all and around France. Now, while we're kind of stuck in the hedgerows trying to get our way out, in July of 1944, there is an assassination attempt on Adolf Hitler. It fails. Operation Valkyrie is a failure. Hitler is not killed, wounded but not really killed. At the same time that happens, the Americans launch a breakout campaign called Cobra, and we carpet bomb the crap out of the French countryside to push the Germans out. Within the matter of a month, in August of 1944, we liberate Paris. And the liberation of Paris comes at a pretty high price. Normandy landing in June 6 of 1944 to September 1st of 1944 cost 30,000 American lives. So it was a high price to pay. But by 1944 August, Paris is liberated, and the next steps are really to take over Germany. And you can go do some slideshow stuff to check out the Paris liberation, see what happens to the female collaborators. But for us, for all intents and purposes, we think the war's done. It's not. December 1944, Hitler launches his last offensive, referred to as Battle of the Bulge. It fails. Basically, the American army is going to be caught off guard in the winter of 44 through December, January. It fails badly for Hitler, but it's one of those moments where it's a great American story. If you have a chance to kind of look over and do a little more with the Battle of the Bulge, take time to do it. Again, if we had time in class, I would go more, but just understand Hitler kind of breaks into the line, but they can't beat us. And so by the end of the year of 1944, going into 45, the war's all but over for Hitler. He just doesn't know it. In February of 45, the big three, Roosevelt, Stalin, Churchill meet at Yalta. Last time they'll meet because Roosevelt's about to die, Churchill's about to get fired, but they all kind of decide what to do next. Now, I posted something in Classroom for you guys, or will do, that's on conferences. You need to make sure you look over the conference stuff. AP liked that. But at Yalta, they basically decide on what to do with Europe next. The big thing is who gets Berlin, which is it's decided the Soviets will get it. And we'll kind of get to that in a minute. February of 1945, Roosevelt dies. Shortly after that, by March, April of 45, Berlin's surrounded. The Russians take it, high cost of life. On April 30th of 1945, April 25th, the Russians and the Americans meet up. If you're following through your slideshows, you see this. They meet at the Elbe. April 30th, Hitler commits suicide in his bunker along with his new wife, Eva Braun. Good marriage. Lasted for about, 1 day. And so the Fuhrer is dead. And on April 30th, 1945, once Hitler dies, the German army begins to surrender. Now, they surrender under two guys, Alfred Jodl and Karl Donitz. But by May 8th of 1945, the Allies are declaring victory in Europe. So May 8th, 1945 becomes VE Day. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave you there. Your last slide that should be the Holocaust, horrors of the Holocaust. My next little video I'll do on the Holocaust for you guys. I'll wait and we'll do more of that when we get back to school. Our next little piece that I want us to do will be the Pacific. Now, for the Pacific Theater, the thing is, I'm going to teach you very quickly about that in a side video with no notes, just because I don't want you not to get it, but it's not going to be on the AP test. So if you have any questions, I went through this really, really fast. Just follow through the slideshow, follow through the notes, look at my outlines that I posted, do all of that. And let me know if this works. I'd really like some feedback on it. Stay safe, wash your hands, do a little exercise. Bye.